Thank you, Jamie, and good morning. It is my great honor to be here with Congressman Kim and Congressman Bera. And many people talked about the very successful official visit by the Prime Minister in April. And that visit clearly demonstrated that Japan-US relationship is stronger than ever, and our partnership has become a global partnership based on a strong sense of trust between our two leaders, but more importantly, between our two peoples. And the Prime Minister's address to the joint meeting of the Congress, the main message was that the US leadership in the world is very much indispensable in ensuring peace and stability in the international community, but the United States doesn't have to bear the burden alone. And Japan will stand with the United States shoulder to shoulder to meet various challenges we face together in the international community. So as we face together very severe and increasingly more severe security situation in the Indo-Pacific, Japan is doubling our defense spending. And beyond our region, Japan is the strongest non-NATO supporter for the Ukrainian people's effort to defend themselves. And the one more important thing during the Prime Minister's visit was the first ever Japan, US, the Philippines trilateral leaders meeting. As the Indo-Pacific region faces various challenges, countries in the region are working together and deepening strategic cooperation among themselves through various so-called minilateral frameworks. So in addition to this first ever Japan, US, the Philippines trilateral, there has been Japan, US, ROK trilateral, Japan, US, Australia trilateral, and the Quad, Japan, US, Australia, and India cooperation. And the fact that Japan and the United States are involved in most of these minilateral frameworks in Indo-Pacific is a clear testament of the central role our alliance plays in the regional peace and stability. And this very strong government-to-government relationship between our two countries is supported by a strong economic partnership between our countries. You know, Japan has been the largest foreign investor into the United States for the past 5 years. And Japanese companies are operating with American, about 1 million American workers. And Japanese companies are contributing to the local communities and working very closely with local governments, thereby fostering the very important sense of trust between our two peoples. And therefore, our relationship we are indispensable partners, not only in matters of security, but of course matters of economy, and the cross-section of those two, meaning the economic security. And as a trusted partner between ourselves, I think we need to further strengthen our cooperation in these economic security matters to ensure our economic competitiveness over other countries into the future. So I will just conclude to express my strong desire to continue to work even more closely with the Congress and everyone here this morning in our joint effort to ensure peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region, and also ensure economic prosperity and economic competitiveness toward the future. Thank you. Great.
Good morning, everyone. Really great to be here and in the presence of distinguished guests who are members of the Ripon Society, and you guys are brave, coming out so early in this 8 o'clock breakfast. Some of us who stayed up late because we were voting late last night and still have to go back and prepare for today. We got a lot of work to do, and it's been quite a week. Right? So we're really looking forward to getting back to districts and making sure in a district like where I represent, which is very diverse. I represent Southern California district, and I do enjoy representing very different people from different diaspora who made Southern California home. So as a member of the Indo-Pacific Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, every time I get back, people think about, okay, what are some of the things that you care about? Obviously, there are some domestic issues, but I always make it a point to emphasize how important it is for us to continue to build that relationship, especially with our allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific. So even at places where you never think that we'll be talking about U.S.-Japan, U.S.-Korea, U.S.-Asia relationship, this issue always comes up because I represent an area which is very close to San Pedro Port Complex, and we handle about 30 to 40% of the imports coming from the region from the Indo-Pacific, and California alone handle about 40% of exports that's getting out into the Indo-Pacific. So it is a critical region, and the Indo-Pacific is not only the largest, but is also the very important priority theater for the United States. But we also see a lot of challenges out there in the South China Sea, Southeast Asia, and in that regard, we see Xi Jinping becoming more, brazen, more bolder and bolder, and he's inching closer to achieving his ambition regarding Taiwan issues. So as we travel around and take the delegation to the region, like last year when I was on the bipartisan delegation led by Chairman McCall, we did travel to Japan, had the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Kishida. I know my colleague Ami was on that trip as well. And we had a really serious, frank, but very important dialogue, such as because Japan has been a very important security partner with us, we flat out asked Prime Minister Kishida if Japan will be there to stand with the United States in providing the support that Taiwan would need. And obviously, because on the Sea of Japan we have 7th Fleet, which will be a very critically, strategically important resource that we can rely on. And he did say yes, under any no questions about it, Japan will be there, but also he said it all depends on what? We directly asked him, he said, on the U.S. leadership. So we did express our appreciation and support for Japan, increasing your defense budget. And we're also hoping and encouraging our partners, especially the NATO countries, to increase their defense budget as well, so that we can collectively counter the challenges that we're facing in the region. As you know, I also went out to the South China Sea, and I was able to fly over the ocean, South China Sea ocean, and we saw the congested waters. We also saw Chinese Coast Guard harassing Philippine Coast Guard, and to the point of injuring and some of the sailors. And so PLA is now getting very brazen, as I mentioned. They are using axes, they're firing water cannons, and they are blocking the passage for the Philippine vessels from carrying the supplies to the second time ashore. And they're again, really building up their military presence around the region. So we got a lot of work to do, but the stability of the Korean Peninsula is also threatened, and that's where we need this relationship that we have built. And there is some timeline of what this trilateral relationship was like since beginning with the Camp David Trilateral Summit of August of last year, which was really breaking historical events. And from there, of course, having the January of this year, Japan and South Korea was invited and served as a non-permanent members of the UN Security Council. And then leading up to, I just got a really nice timeline of the relationship that has been built in U.S., Korea, and Japan. So we did have a first trilateral Indo-Pacific dialogue January this year. We had a trilateral foreign ministers meeting. Following that, and then of course having the vice foreign minister level, ministerial level trilateral dialogue, and then of course just most recently in July we had trilateral global leadership youth summit in Busan. South Korea hosted it. So there is a lot of great development that is making. So I think I'm really looking forward to this dialogue that we're going to have today, so we can talk about what are some of the areas that we can really improve on, building on this success that we are seeing. So I'll leave it there and then ask my colleague to, say your opening, and then we'll answer some questions.
Great. So I won't repeat everything that was said, but I think a couple things, and I think the ambassador touched on the importance of the alliances and relationships, and I think about it in the context of the 75 years post World War II. In many ways, it was an American-led 75 years, creating NATO, rebuilding Europe, creating a superpower in Japan, and relative peace stability. But in the last decade and a half, you've seen some major disruptive events. You saw the Great Recession in 2008, 2010, followed by the pandemic, which obviously was a very disruptive event, which showed vulnerabilities in supply chains, et cetera. And now we have the first big country war with the unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I think we put those things in context. Also, I spent a lot of time trying to understand U.S. domestic politics and so forth. And you can spend a lot of time in the last week trying to understand U.S. domestic politics. But there's a recasting of parties as well, and I think that's really important. And understanding the 2016 election outcome, which I think surprised a lot of folks in both parties, but that to some of that, and the ambassador touched on this, there is a strain that, hey, we can't do it alone, the United States. So I think those 75 years, that's not withdrawal from the world, but that's a recognition that we also have systemic challenges here in the United States, our infrastructure, large portions of the country feeling as though they've been left behind. And what does that look like? And that looks like a different the next 75 years. Within the region, when I think about the region, I think the hope probably was a decade, 2 decades ago, as China built a middle class, as it built an entrepreneurial class, would do what Japan did and others, that there would be some openness, liberalization, interconnectedness. And I'm a pro-TPP guy, so someone who supported TPP. I actually think if we had gotten TPP across the finish line, you would have changed the economic framework in the region. I always thought TTIP, which was a transatlantic trade deal, was going to be harder to get across the finish line than, we never really got started on it. And then we would have been spending our time bridging a transatlantic and trans-Pacific economic partnership. And we'll look back at this. I think that was more than just about economics. That was about strategy, about bringing countries together. I think it would have forced China to rethink the direction it was going. That's not going to happen right now. So, but in that context, the ambassador talked about the important framework that is taking place in Japan, and the United States are at the center of that. U.S., Japan, Korea, U.S., Japan, the Philippines, the Quad coalition, U.S., Japan, Australia, India. I would throw AUKUS in there as well. The fact that it's no small thing that U.S. Navy vessels will be doing some repair and maintenance work in Japan. Those types of deals are not very easy to get to if you know some of our labor politics and everything else. But that's an important, that starts to bring us together as nations in the region. And I'll just close with this. Our competitors in the region, Beijing, will say that we're changing the status quo. The truth is, we'd actually like to maintain the status quo of peace, stability, and prosperity throughout that region. But as Young pointed out, we were late to the game in addressing and stopping what happened in the South China Sea, back in the Obama administration. if you give them an inch, they'll take a foot. If you give them a foot, they'll take a yard. And now it's a major challenge. So, you know, we see what's happening across the straits, the Taiwan Straits. I think we have to stand together. The goal is not to change, not to be aggressive. It's to maintain the status quo. But you have to do this through strength, and I think that's, you know, the backbone of a lot of that is the U.S.-Japan partnership, both economically but also geopolitically and strategically. And it's great to see, you know, Japan and Prime Minister Kishida. You know, going to 2% of GDP is not politically easy, and you know, but we admire the commitment to doing that. So, let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you all three.